What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Loganbuilt podcast. Today, I have our very first outside guest, all the way from Delaware, Drew Carter. Drew has a really impressive VP44 truck. It's one of the fastest trucks in the country. He's a cool guy with a cool job. He's got some cool stories. And today, he's going to sit down with us and tell him a little bit about his racing adventure and how he got into this stuff. So, Drew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. A little chilly up here, but
yeah. Is it not cold where you're at?
No, it's cold right now, but Florida would be a lot better.
Yeah. So I think we should start with your really interesting job and how you get to travel all over the world. And so what's the deal with that, and how'd you land that kind of job?
So in the military, I was a loadmaster. Got out of the military, do the same thing, but it's commercially. We haul race cars, animals, elephants, ammunition, whatever we got to haul that's on an airplane. So it really brings me to all around the world. And with doing that, I've met a lot of people through the racing industry, the diesel industry, to be exact. And I've been able to, come have lunch with you, go out to Diesel Auto Power in Utah and learn how to build injectors and stuff like that. I went out to Crazy Carl's Turbos in Tennessee. I've been all over, California and stuff like that, Texas, you name. I've been to basically every state and a lot of countries, honestly, but it's cool to go around and meet people that are passionate in the diesel industry, and then go from there. Got to play poker with the guys at Firepunk, talk crap to Gavin with the VEs, the king of VEs now.
Poor
so,
Gavin.
Yeah. So it's been a blast. I really get to see a lot. And learn a lot. That's what's excelled me so far in this racing industry as a hobby, is I get to meet people and they give you their little snippet, which then helps out. You helping me with rear suspension setup was a big thing. We could never get the truck to launch rate. We'd go out there and the times just started cutting down like crazy, and it was like we were stuck at 670 for so long, and get up with you, and now it's, man, we're knocking on 620's doors, whoa.
It's funny because the suspension stuff is really overlooked in this space, and everybody wants to make it up with horsepower, but we all only have so much horsepower because it takes money to make horsepower.
Yeah.
And so you have to find it anywhere that you can, and usually 60 foot is where you're going to find all the ET.
Yeah, it's especially with us VP guys, we're very limited on power. There's, we're not making 3,000 horsepower. We're not even making the 1,500 horsepower that common aero guys are easily to make. So looking at that, it's, hey, where can you get your suspension set up? Where can you get this? And you start a lot of people just start, hey, let me throw a massive set of turbos on it, the biggest injection pump I can, and I'm just gonna go out and spray the crap out of it. So you look at that and you're like, man, well, I forgot safety. That's a big thing a lot of people forget. And then it's, I forgot to set up the suspension. Here I am running the full leaf with the full leaf pack with two shocks that when I pulled them off after talking to you, they literally fell out from each other in my hand. I'm like, oh, well, that might be the problem right there.
Yeah, that's the thing. That people really overlook the shock thing. And my buddy JP, he knows shocks really well because he's really into motorcycle stuff. And on a motorcycle, it kind of forces you to be good at shocks because you feel what the tire is feeling. And so if you've never really experienced something like that before, it's a lot harder for you to understand just how important the shock really is on a race truck. And it's really even more so than just the initial hit. Like, a lot of people think that, I just needed to do whatever I wanted to do initially, make the tire happy. But none of these racetracks are perfectly smooth. The worser the surface is, the better that shock has to be. And that's when you start to understand how a shock works. You realize, holy crap, this shock that's blown out is just not doing anything good for you.
Yeah, it's crazy because we were at Crossville and I'm sending you messages and I'm talking to my buddy back home, Dave from Porky's Diesel. I'm going, hey man, what do you guys think? And you're telling me, try this and this, but then I shook the tires. Well, did you lower the PSI on the tires? Oh, I forgot about that. I jumped straight into, I don't want to overload the truck on this or overdo this or turn the tune up way too hot to where it just shakes the tires, but at the same time, I got to be able to get from point A to point B.
Yep.
And that's the same thing we did at Cecil County, where we just broke into the nines was I had Dave was there racing his personal truck, and he's like, hey, why don't you change the front settings, which you and I had talked about. And you're like, okay, all right, let me do that. But then I'm messaging you and I'm like, what do you think about the rear? And there's so many different factors that make one agreement to make the truck actually go, because you change one and now the back one's out so far, so you change that and then you start chasing your tail. And that's why, like, I don't even want to touch the truck again before we go to Diesel Truck Wars, because I'm like, it's set, but the problem is it's set for Cecil County on that day at that temperature, that prep, that everything, and it's all different. So
exactly. Yeah, and so it's always a moving target that you're trying to hit. And the best analogy that I ever heard was race cars like looking through a series of windows that are stacked up on top of each other. And if you've got everything perfect, the converter, the tires, the suspension, shocks, then all the windows are perfectly aligned. Well, if you start to have a shock that's blown out, well, now you move a window over here. Now, if the converter isn't that great, you're moving your window. The next thing you know, you're looking through this tiny hole. And that, like, when I heard that, I was like, oh man, everything really made so much more sense to me about how it all has to work together. And another thing that I see people miss is that they think it's all in the chassis. And you get to a point where you get the chassis pretty figured out, and you might make some small shock changes depending on the surface that you're on that day, but really it's in the laptop, or, as a VP, I don't know if you use a laptop or not, but
it's in a cell phone.
Yeah, it's in a Nokia. But it's in the tune-up. That's really where a lot of guys, though, they think, oh, well, my chassis is this or that. And it's like, no, you're not hitting it hard enough. You're not leaving hard enough. Or you're leaving way too hard, and it's outside the realm of what's capable. And I think what's really cool about you, and I didn't really learn this about you until we actually met in person and got to talk, but you have that right attitude and that right personality to where you're not afraid to ask questions, you're not afraid to go meet people, you're not afraid to network, and that's why you've done so well with what you have.
It's definitely a learning experience, because when I first got into this, I would message someone, I'd be like, hey, look, I got a VP truck, I know you're a common rail guy, but I'm asking about this, or talking to some of the VP guys when I first got into it. Luckily, Chris Parker and I became really good friends to where we could bounce ideas back and forth off of each other. And that's where it really started was, hey, like, what are you running? Or people are so secretive in the VP world, or they used to be. It's gotten a lot better. Well, and the diesel community to a whole they were, oh, I won't tell you this because, you might catch me. I'm a VP guy. I'm never gonna run in the fours.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna touch a low 5. That's the problem. I'm not coming after you for that. And I don't race the ODSS series like some of the guys do, where I'm hitting every one, so we're racing for points. I might hit 1 or 2 a year, but it's a hobby for me.
Sure.
I don't have this big hauler that I'm traveling every single racetrack or something like that. So networking has been the best, where we can talk to each other. I apologize for that.
No, you're good.
So we can basically, bounce ideas off of each other. I've been talking to Patrick Brown and guys like that, and there's tons of names out there that we can all go over. And the thing is, you can say, hey, look, this worked for me. This didn't work for me. Now the big thing is people are, Quadzilla worked for me or it didn't. And I'm like, okay, well, did you give it this chance? Or, oh no, I just jumped ship right away. And I'm like, dude, you guys just blew through some money. Like that's a lot of money. And it's the same thing that I see with the common rail world is now. They're like, oh, well, this tune didn't work for me, so I changed tunes. Well, come to find out, it's something to do with an injector.
Yeah.
Or they're quick to, jump here and there, and that's when it comes back to, if you ask questions and you talk to people, and like I know you're, to me, you're YouTube famous, because, you got some YouTube videos and some views, and it's like, man, when I posted on the Fire Pump forum and you're like, oh yeah, you just message me and I'll help you. And I'm like, okay, you're not sending me like, okay, like just single word and one sentence responses. You're actually like, hey, look, let's start from the bottom and work our way up. Like what's the weight of this? Or, what are you running here? Have you tested this? Have you tested that? And I'm like, okay, look, I don't want to just dive in head first and just go buy all this stuff. And you're the exact same way. You're like, hey, look, maybe this is worn out. I cut the springs on the front, and you're like, that could be changing this and spring rate, and I never would have thought of that. I just, hey, I took a cutoff wheel to it, it lowered the truck, what everyone else does. It works for a daily driver, but now we're in a higher horsepower, we're launching the truck hard to get it to go straight, and the truck, I have torque steer problems. Well, knock on wood, that solved a lot of the problems.
Right. Well, and that's what I remember the post was mainly about that you made. And I didn't know who you were or anything. Yeah. I just saw that you made a post about a torque steer issue. And I normally aren't very present on the internet. Like, I normally won't comment and say stuff, but you were getting so much bad advice that I was like, man, if this poor guy follows what these people are saying, he's going to be so lost. And so I just thought, well, I'll just message him and talk to you. And a lot of times, like, I'll waste a lot of my time talking with people, because some people, they don't really want answers. Some people aren't there yet. They're not at the point where they can really understand what you're saying. And I try to keep everything really simple, but I was telling you things and you were reciprocating in a way to where I'm like, okay, this guy is actually like going to listen. And then, like you said, we went through everything front to back. And a lot of people think that like they don't want to talk to me because they think I'm going to tell them to go spend a bunch of money. But I really don't. I'm like, okay, let's see with what you have. Because 9 times out of 10, you can make something happen out of what you have, at least enough to show, okay, that was the right step. I see what you're saying. I can prove a theory to you with the shocks that you have. Yeah. And then you're like, okay, I get it. It's time to go buy shocks. But it's not like, hey, you should go drop $4,000 right now. And that's what a lot of people will say. Like, you'll see all kinds of crazy comments where people are like, oh, you need to rebuild your whole front end. I'm like, man, the problem, not saying that there might not be an issue in the front, but it's mainly probably not the front, because that's what a lot of people miss, is they think that if it's doing some sort of steering or anything weird, oh, it's in the front. Well, usually it's in the back. What is the back doing? Oh, it's compressing and it's hitting a hard stop and then it's upsetting it. Well, yeah, it's going to do stuff like that. It's driving into power, lazy off the starting line. They're going to drive all over the place.
Yeah, and that's where, it came down to, hey, the people that are recording your videos, come off to the side a little bit more so I can see how the tire loads and the truck loads and stuff like that. And I'm like, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
I just got these cool videos of the truck going down the road, the 60-foot, it looks awesome, but then you're like, well, that doesn't really give you any data, and with me, it's a VP truck. I can't data log. With the Quadzilla, you can data log, but it's not as much as a common rail can. I can't look at stuff like that. And then I don't have, sensors for shocks and sensors for this and to see how it loads. And I know we went back and forth. It wasn't an overnight thing. It was like, hey man, whenever you get a chance, can you respond? And of course, with me flying all over, you might respond, the next day, but here I am, I'm in South Korea, and I'm like, hey, I can't get you that measurement, but when I get home in a couple days, I'll get you that measurement. And you're like, okay, just let me know from there. And it went to, we had springs on the back coils, and then you're like, let's try without it. And then we improved by it was like 0.03 in the 60-foot, and then that made it up on the top end, and you're like, hey, look, see, we went in the right direction, or hey, try this. And I'm like, I didn't think about that. And that's why I like being able to talk back and forth. It's the same as I'm good friends with Carl from Crazy Carl's Turbos, and talking to him and saying, hey, what do you think about this? And there's sometimes he'll say, no, that's not a good idea, or hey, that is a good idea. Try it. See what happens. If you have, without going out and spending a boatload of money, if you have the opportunity to try it, go for it. Yep. And that's been really good with between talking to you, my buddies back home, and bouncing ideas. It's just been great. I never thought about at first, before I got in contact with you, removing any of the leaf springs. So here I am running down the track like that, and my buddy Nathan and Trent Owens, they're like, hey, why don't you go down to two leaves? I'm like, well, what do you mean 2 leaves? I have an automotive background since I've been really dabbling in it and going from there, but I'm like, you can take that away? Okay, all right, well, I'll take it away. So I take it away, and then hey, it got a little bit better, but now the torque steer's worse. Yeah. So it's like, okay, so then we did the shocks in the back, and then you're like, okay, try this. And I'm like, well, the torque steer hasn't changed. Well, what did you do to the front? I'm like, I haven't changed anything. Well, what is done to the front? Oh, well, I lowered it. How'd you lower it? I cut stuff. And you're like, yeah, let's adjust that a little bit.
Yeah.
So then we did, and it got better and better, and now it got to the point where I'm able to. I mean, we're in the 9s.
Yeah, which is really amazing.
That's only 2 people in the 9s right now. It's Johnny Gilbert and then me.
And what is the exact ET that you've been?
9.98.
Okay, so you've been 998?
Yeah,
okay.
And he was 993.
Oh, wow.
So,
and that was with nitrous, and you're doing it fuel only, right?
No, his was fuel only, he said.
Okay, fuel only.
So, yeah, of course, that was a while ago, so he had a monster pump. There's a lot of different variables. So now here I am fuel only, and I'm like, hey, that 0.05, like...
Yeah.
Let's make it happen, and all we gotta do is get some good boost weather, and we'll be there.
Yeah, exactly. Get the right conditions. Yeah. And with that, what you're referring to is a really old run, right? Like the Johnny's run. Like
yeah, I forget when it was. I know it was a while ago. He sent me the slip, but I don't remember the date on it. I just know that it was a while ago, and I don't know if he had compounds or triples on it, but I know that.
I think. Because I remember back when Johnny's truck was a VP, and I'm pretty sure it always had triples on it.
It might, and honestly, I think it does. I know I've seen something about it, and I've talked to Johnny multiple times about it. Of course, he's helping Steve with
the little pink truck.
Pink Panther, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so, of course, that's a pro mod,
Oh, boy, you're going to get some hate for that.
I give him crap all the time. I'm like, that doesn't count on the 8th mile fastest VP44 list. I'm like, that's a pro mod. That's a pro mod. But here I am, every time Levon posts that the S10 truck's for sale, and I'm like, I could crush the record.
Yeah.
Nobody could ever deal with me again. I could crush it, but then I get the same backlash. Hey, that's a pro mod. That's a pro mod.
Yeah, well, everybody wants to, compartmentalize these things, right?
Yeah.
Like, even with the fuel only versus the nitrous, you're still hanging on to, the fuel only.
Yeah.
Even though, we live in a world now where nobody really cares.
They don't.
All they care about is what the time slip says.
Yep.
They don't care if it's nitrous or fuel only. There was a time when fuel only meant something, but it doesn't really anymore. And that's how I feel about lightweight stuff. When we went forwards with that truck, a lot of people wanted to discount it just because it's lightweight. Well, that's fine, but it also took a lot of effort to build it that light, and we didn't have nearly the horsepower that these other guys have. So to me, if you did do something like that, if you put a VP in a really light chassis, that just makes you smart.
Yeah, hey, I'm telling you, if that price ever gets to where I need it to be, I will be on my way over this way with a trailer, and you'll be like, "What are you doing?" I'll be like, "I'm taking the record, and I'm going to bury the record."
Yeah, nobody's ever going to touch
it. And I mean, it's the same. You get, especially on the VP44 Facebook group, you get people, and they're like, "Hey, I have the fastest fuel only full interior, this, that," and people always get on me because I have fiberglass doors and fiberglass bedsides and fiberglass front clip. Well, at the same time, my doors were so dented up, it was either buy brand new doors, gut them again because I'm not going to put glass in them, or buy fiberglass doors. Well, to me, it was kind of a no-brainer. Spend a little bit extra money, get the fiberglass, and be done with it.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I mean, I'm an extended cab. It's more weight. I still weigh more than some people think, and that's where I'm like, if you guys only knew how much it really weighed, you guys would be like, oh wow, that's not as light as I thought it was.
Exactly.
I thought it was a pro mod, and I saw something on Facebook a while ago, and it was like, people call your vehicle a pro mod if they can't beat you.
Yeah.
That's what it's always been. I'm like, that's true.
Yeah, and I mean, a little education on pro mod. Pro mod is a class. It is not a vehicle. It is a profession. What pro mod stems from is professionally modified. That means that they built it on a jig, a tube chassis.
Yeah.
They made the body however they needed to fit the size tire they needed. They put the motor where they needed it to be. There is, aside from the S10, which the S10 is not even a pro mod. The S10 is a top sportsman chassis.
Yeah.
So very similar to a pro mod, but technically that's an old top sportsman chassis. Now their Duster that they just built, that is a true pro mod. That is legal to run in PDRA, Pro Boost. That is a true pro mod. None of these trucks are pro mods. I don't care what anybody wants to say. No. They are not.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I talked to Rick and those guys at PRI 2 years ago or something, and I was like, man, shoot, I could bury that record. And
Yeah.
I look at it and I give Steve crap all the time because it's the Pink Panther. But I mean, if I was in the same boat, I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
I've thought about it, and I've looked on Facebook Marketplace, late at night, and you're like scrolling and you see, oh, it's an S10, that it's a roller, and someone wants to sell it. They want $5,500 for it, and it's already caged and this, and I'm like, do I buy it, throw a set of big tires on it, and then just go be happy? But I'm doing something that you go to the track, and how many 4x4 trucks, especially in Delaware, there's Matt Gardenia, Byron Klein, me, and then the guys that are up north in Pennsylvania, because we're in southern Delaware, Maryland. At our local track, there's only 3 of us that really go and race, unless it's somebody that has like a 2500 Dodge that they threw a tuner on or something like that.
Straight truck.
Strictly actually racing, you go out there and people start turning heads. People, what's in that thing?
Yeah.
Oh man, what do you got in that thing? Or you come back on the return road and they walk up to your pit and they're like, oh man, I just saw you go. That was so cool. Or
Yeah.
I got people messaging me on Facebook and they're like, hey, I saw a video of your truck on Snapchat, or I saw a video of your truck on Facebook because somebody was at the track watching you go on testing tune. And I'm like, that's cool. It wasn't just another Mustang. It wasn't another Camaro. It's something different that makes everyone look at you.
For sure. That's the coolest part about racing a diesel, honestly, is the people love it. I mean, I'm friends with the guys that tend to race cars, and Jason always says that if you want a lot of pictures taken, don't build a Mustang. But if you want to win, build a Mustang. Yeah. And it's true. Like, a Mustang is the best race car that you could buy, like Ford money, but nobody cares. You could run whatever pass you want to run in that Mustang, and no one cares. Yeah. But you could go out there with a diesel truck that it might not even be fast in its respective class, but it could be a good running truck, and it blows people's minds because it's a truck. That, like, your truck in their mind should not run 630s.
No.
Like that, and especially the older people. Like, my dad is a bracket racer his whole life. Well, a good running bracket car runs 630s. And those guys, they have a real deal race car.
Yeah.
And, it completely blows their minds. So what got you into racing diesel stuff?
So, it's funny. I had a buddy who had a 2001 2500 VP truck, and his grandfather had the truck that I have. And so I was like, hey, I want to be, it's fun. It's cool. That's the thing I want to do. I had a Volkswagen Jetta, and I bought the truck too. So I drive the Jetta back and forth to work, and, drive the truck on the weekends and put a programmer on it. I thought I was top notch.
Yeah. And what year would this have been?
This would have been 2014, 13. Okay. So I bought the truck. Yeah, I think it was 13 I bought the truck. So I was in the military, I got out of the military, I went overseas, a contract, I was overseas, and I was like, you know what? I went on like XDP at the time, built a list. I'm like, man, I want to go fast. Then it turned into, I got a buddy of mine was like, hey, try diesel auto power. So I messaged them, I sent them the build list. Of course, this is back when VPs were still, there's knowledge on it, but there's only like what Johnny did at the time with the VPs. So I was like, oh, you know what? I ordered everything. I had a local guy did all the work for me because, of course, I didn't know anything about diesels other than oil change, brake tires, and power steering and starter. That was my knowledge for a diesel. So I went ahead and ordered everything, had him build the truck. Had some problems down the road with basically something that happened with the engine. So, we went back through it. And at that point, I had the opportunity to buy a common rail. Probably should have just, instead of staying on that road, diverted it a little bit, and I wouldn't have been as far as I'm in probably. But I'm here now, and it turned into, I wanted to do stuff on my own. I changed injectors for the first time a while back, and it was like, man, this isn't as hard as I thought it was. Right. So then it turned into, I can do injectors. Okay, well, you know what? I want to change turbos. So then I would message Carl and be like, hey, what do you think about this? And he's like, oh yeah, that pairs up good with this. And okay, so then it turned into, I got married in 2019. The end of 19 was Diesel Truck Wars. I had been following the whole Diesel Truck Wars scene. I messaged Chris Parker and was like, hey, I'm thinking about coming down. Okay, these are the dates. We literally left at like 4 a.m, got down there, raced. I got knocked out first round of ET class because the truck was a high 7, low 8 truck at the time. Drove home that night and was like, okay, that was fun. I want to do it again. that winter I bought a trailer.
It's a slippery slope.
Oh, it started as I borrowed a trailer and,
Yeah.
went on stock tires. That winter I bought wheels and tires. It just kept going to the point where we are now to the point where it just got a brand new 850 cage. It just got a new steering column. There's a couple other little upgrades we've done for the winter to basically get us to that lower 9 that we want to get, just to get the high or be the fastest quarter mile. And then I want to go after the 6.27 is what Chris Parker did with fuel only.
The 8th mile record.
Yeah, and I want to go after the 8th mile record with fuel only, and then that's when I'll start introducing nitrous. But I mean, right now we partnered up with Diesel Auto Power and Quadzilla, and I'm running a Quadzilla program in my truck. I've learned a lot about that, being able to talk to those guys. Kelton and Jacob Kidd have been really big on pushing what we can do with it. We've been testing injectors. We're actually going to be testing some more injectors coming up, and basically seeing, putting to rest the whole 5-hole, 6-hole, 7-hole, or 8-hole. What is it? What's the best for this application?
Yep.
We're going to test some injectors and say, hey, look, this is what we got with a 5-hole. This is what we got with a 7-hole, but they're equal in the flow rate, just to see what the difference is, because everyone can say, this does better and this does better. Where's the proof other than a video of you spraying it inside of a plexiglass box?
Yeah, where's the time slip?
Yeah, and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna rent the track. We're gonna go out there and we're gonna make 2 to 3 passes, come back, let the truck cool down, swap injectors. Go out there and make another couple passes, and of course adjust the tuning as we have to.
Sure.
And that's where it got to. I mean, the tuning aspect it's all done on your phone. It's easy. It's not hard. You just have to know which way to go, and it's a lot of trial and error, because right now what I've been doing is I've been doing a lot of tuning for customers. I get people that reach out and they go, hey, do you do any tuning? Yeah, I do tuning. Shoot me a message. I need to know what this, and this you have, and then I'll send you a tune. And then what I do is I actually tell them, like, look, after I send you the tune, let me know how the truck does. Send me a screen recording of all these parameters that you can monitor with Quadzilla, and then send me a video of the truck while you drive or when you pull off. And so, of course, there's always the young guys who are like, I just want it to smoke. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay, here you go. And then I do the best that it can, because of course you're limited on injectors and stuff. But then at the same time, you get guys that go, dude, the truck, I had tuning before and it didn't work for me. The tuning and the customer service that you gave me by adjusting the tune. And I'm like, hey, look, it might take me a day to get back to you, but I will get back to you.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, now the truck runs 100% better. Now, the truck, it's there. It's where I want to be. And I'm like, I'm glad I could do that. And then, 6 months down the road, they're like, hey, I just bought a new Scheid injection pump. Can you help me? And I'm like, yeah, I do. It's a little bit of money, but it's not much. And
for a retune.
I'll send you a retune, and, we'll go from there. And it comes with the exact same terms, until we get it right within reason. I'm not going to sit there and send 30,000 tunes back and forth, but until we get it right, I'm going to help you get that tune to where you want to be, because that's the biggest misconception with programmers for a VP is, you have these other brands that you just press a button and it's level 5 or level 1, 2, 3, and that's what you do. Where Quadzilla, you can actually go in there and set, the timing, the fueling towards boost and stuff like that. And there's so much you can do that people just think, oh, well, I put it on and I pressed it all the way up to 10. Well, fun fact, I don't run my race truck on 10.
Right.
I even told you, my race truck doesn't go on level 10 because I'm 0.3 of a second slower on 10 than I am on my regular level.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't understand that. People go, oh, well, I ran this and it's, 10's the highest. Well, if you give it too much fuel or you give it too much timing, that it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm starting to learn. I'm nowhere near able to do common rails ever in my life, no desire, but the VP platform, I love it and enjoy it because I can look at that and say, hey, I told you so. It's not just a press of a button going up and stuff like that.
Absolutely, yeah. And people need to hear that stuff.
Yeah, it's not like you with a screwdriver.
No, exactly. It's a little bit cruder there. Yeah. And it's funny that a lot of people think that the P-pump stuff is just like, oh, it's so untunable and stuff. But I've recently developed a further relationship with Lenny at DDP. And he's a really sharp guy. And he's done some really good videos for the P-pump crowd, really explaining how you can tune in a P pump. And like on my truck here, like I have a lot of data, and I have a lot of stuff that I can do with it. Like it might be one of the most technologically advanced 12 valves, honestly. like the Shy Dragster has a lot of the same stuff that I have on it as far as like the data and stuff goes. But just because it's mechanical, it gets a bad rep of, oh, you can't do anything with it. Because technically a VP is still mechanical. It's just electronically controlled.
Yep.
But what I'm noticing is that, and Lenny's noticing this too, is with the common rail stuff getting so expensive now, and trucks in general are so expensive, that people are starting to revert back to the old mechanical stuff where, like in my case, a 12 valve, like you can handle the tuning yourself. If they get a VP, you can help them get it lined out. And it's a lot more reasonable for people.
It's a lot cheap. And that's what I look at right now. I have a buddy of mine actually just bought a 24 valve, and he's like, hey, I don't want anything crazy, but I'd like to do like injectors, maybe a single turbo, just a little bit bigger than stock, and go from there. And I'm like, all right, first is the transmission. I mean,
Yep.
that's, you got to get that ironed out.
Yeah.
I mean,
you can wait, but you're not going to make it very far.
No, and that's why I tell him, I'm like, look, you don't need a full-blown, full billet trans. You don't need what I have, because of course he's like, hey, what do you have in your truck? What are you doing with yours? I'm like, you don't need that.
Right.
So then I told him, I was like, look, injectors. So Diesel Auto Power came out with I don't want to say low end because it's not. They came out with basically the remans or brand new original Bosch injectors, or they have the Quadzilla brand now, which they come with green O-rings. Like, it's pretty cool. Like,
that is cool.
It matches the truck.
Yeah.
But it's just the amount of, I guess you could say, detail goes into them. So like, you can get a set of 90 horse injectors for pretty cheap, but if you were to do that on a common rail,
oh man,
you're thousands.
Yeah, several thousands.
Yeah, and like, you can go right now, I believe you can make 700 horsepower with an SO VP44, which is what came on most of the trucks. Mm-hmm. So 700 horsepower, that's a lot of horsepower for someone who's not, racing. I mean, my truck, if you do the calculator online, comes out to 984 horsepower on fuel. Mm-hmm. That's, to me, I still think there's more left in the truck with, setting up the chassis and stuff like that. I think that's one of the big things.
That's really impressive, the power.
It's crazy because, people go, oh, I made 1,300 horsepower on a dyno, and I'm like, what's the track time? Mm-hmm. Let's do weight track. Because you can spike a dyno, or the dyno can be loaded. I mean, I went on a dyno and it said I made 700 horsepower. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I went out and busted out a 670 for my class on no prep, with the truck being a lot heavier than it was, and the suspension messed up, and it still came out to like 910 horsepower. Or something like that. I'm like,
the numbers don't lie.
Okay, well that's different. So I mean, I think between 12 valves and VPs, you can really have a lot of fun for less money.
I agree.
Then you get into a common rail, and you're like, oh, I want to build. Don't get me wrong, the possibilities with a common rail are endless.
Yeah, endless.
30,000 horsepower. If you want to get up to you get a D&J or Waggler.
Yeah, you get a full little motor, fleece engine or something.
I mean, Freedom Racing, I mean, I look at like Ryan with his Nova, and I'm just like, dude. And people are like, oh, would you ever do that? And I'm like, not on a VP. Plus, VP owners, I don't got that kind of money.
Yeah. Well, the most amazing thing about what Ryan's doing, and I don't think that the diesel crowd fully understands this, is that he has a rule set that he has to go by where he is power limited.
Yes.
So it's nothing against the guys that aren't power limited, but he has to run an 88 millimeter turbo. He's limited to the amount of nitrous that he can run. He has to run a certain style car that fits a certain size rules and on a certain tire.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a radial. Radials are the fastest tire that you can get on the right surface, but he's doing really, really impressive numbers within a rule set. Not just hey, let's see like how far our budget can take us, no rules.
Yeah, and I saw that. I of course, I follow him on Facebook, and I see like it'll be like everyone will be commenting, X275 has a new rule, and I'm like,
yep.
And then you look at it, and it's like turbocharger for diesel. And I'm like, oh wow, that was targeted. Like,
oh, absolutely.
I wonder who that went after. And that's the amount of nitrous you can run. I'm like, man, he's going out there, number one qualifier, back to back to back, and people are of course, then you get targeted. I got buddies that are in the dirt or sled pulling, mud pits and stuff like that, and it's the same thing. You come back every week and there's a new rule, or there's because you beat them, and then it's there's another rule, and then you beat them, and
in his situation, it's not that they're targeting him as he's not like they're not like we got to slow the diesel down.
Yeah.
It's they don't want that class to get so fast.
Oh, okay.
So really X275, it's an unspoken 420 index. Now they don't ever want to admit that because they all want to be heads up racers.
Yeah.
But John Sears is the guy that does the tech in that class, and if you're going faster, they go off of back splits, right? Like they did the mathematical calculation between the 330 and the 8th mile, and they look at your mile per hour, and that's how they judge how much power you have. And they're going to pull power back or add weight to keep you from going too fast because they don't want the class to go any faster than that.
Yeah.
At that point, they want it because there has to be a differentiate between all these classes. So Pro 275, LDR, and X are 3 different classes. Well, the cars look very similar. So from the fan, you have to know which class is up. Well, Pro 275 goes 380s. Okay, the fan knows that's the big boy 275 class. Limited drag radial, they need to keep that around a 4.0 to keep that differentiate between it, and then they want X to be 2/10 off of that. So it's mainly just they're trying to keep really good parity, and they're trying to keep the classes looking good from the fans' perspective. So a lot of guys think that, they hate the diesel. No, honestly, they love what Ryan's done with it, because when he first came out with it, they thought that, let the diesel play, he's never going to qualify. And now, he's won some of the biggest races there are to win in that space. So
I'm glad you just told me that, because I didn't even know that, they're set at these, and that's what I'm talking about. There's so much out there that I have to learn about drag racing, other than I pay at the front gate, and then I go to tech, and then I come back and I'm like, all right, it's time to go race. And now I'm checking tire. You're telling me, hey, did you check tire pressures in between rounds? And I'm like, no. So I look at my buddy Chase that helps me, and I'm like, did you check tire pressure? No.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, we need to check all 4 tires. So I used to see people at Diesel Truck Wars that are in the outlaw class going up there, and they have their digital tire gauge and stuff like that. And I'm like, what are they doing? Or they're checking tire temp and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, well, now that I'm not racing ET 770, I do race 670 because I have to detune the truck. But the goal is to go 590 eventually, and race with the 590 guys and be competitive. And I look at it and I'm like, man, I actually, I went out and bought a digital tire pressure gauge. I went out and got a thermometer. I went out and got all this stuff, and it's in my race bag, my go bag, I call it. And I'm always like, all right. So in between rounds, it's, hey, what are you doing? My wife and kids are there, and I'm like, okay, well, hold on, I gotta go check tire pressure.
Yeah.
I also gotta set up the GoPro.
Yeah.
I gotta get dressed. Hold on, give me a second.
Exactly. You gotta cool it down between rounds.
And now I have 2 fans that I'm putting on it. I got a generator. Of course, we like to cook. We take the smokers, so we got the generator.
Yeah.
But I got fans on it the whole time. I'm cooling the transmission down. I'm cooling this down. I'm doing whatever I can. It's to a point where there's so much more that I have to do other than just show up and race ET and have fun.
Exactly.
And don't get me wrong, all of this work is fun. And then you get going back to the network is I get people. Hunter Coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I was at Diesel Truck Wars. I think it was my 3rd time there. Hunter Coffee, his brother and his dad and his and their friend come up to me at the Marriott Hotel. Oh, I like your truck. I didn't know who they were. No clue. Didn't even know they were going racing until I see their utility body truck and trailer with a 3rd gen on it come up. And they're like, or a 2nd gen. And they're like, oh, we're actually racing. So I talked to them, talked about the truck. We all just talked and had fun. And then when we get to the track, they come up to me. Hey, what do you think tire pressure should be? What are you running? We're just running regular stock tires. Okay, well, when I ran my stock tires before I went to
a
slick, yeah, I brain fart. I went ahead and I was going this low on it with PSI, or I was going to this, but just don't make sure you don't go too low, because you spin the tire, pop it off. There's a lot of things that can happen that I didn't know about. And they're like, okay, cool. I didn't even know this, but we ended up lining up on one of the qualifying rounds. And it was pretty close for ET. It was awesome. It was really cool. And I'm like, man, that's awesome. And then now Hunter messages me, I don't know, all the time. Or I Diesel Truck Wars, they bought some of my shirts, and not the same, vice versa, everything. I go hang out with them. Last time I smoked 3 racks of ribs, and I took a whole tray of 1 rack of ribs. I stopped at his trailer. I'm like, hey, this is for you guys. This is for you guys. And of course, his dad's like, well, your family, come on. I'm like, well, I already got 2 more racks back there. Like,
yeah, that's
this
really
is
cool.
because we're all really like, that's why I tell you, like, you got to come out to Diesel Truck Wars, man. It's a blast. It's family. I want to say family oriented, not only with, of course, your family, but everyone is so close between, you know, Chris Parker and Buddy Calloway come over and say hi. You know, I've been really close and met a lot of good people and good friends to where, you know, Diesel Truck Wars, if there's something that happens, you know, Landon Miller, he needed a nitrous line and a nitrous bottle. And I was like, hey, I ripped it out of my truck because I broke. I ripped it out of my truck and handed it to him. And then he goes and wins 670.
That's really cool.
And I'm like, hey, you know, so I rented you some of the equipment.
Yeah, you helped him get there.
So then he's giving me help on doing Anteater because I was having so many problems where I was just going to throw it away and be done with it and take a loss. But then he helped me. But then it turns into, you know, hey, I'll see you at the next race. And he brings my bottle back, and you know, we're talking, and now it's a friendship that I can, you know, message him and be like, hey, same with you. I haven't got to race with you yet. I mean, you know, you're scared of the VP truck.
I am. That thing's fast, man. I am scared right now.
But I'm looking forward to it, man. It's because it's also not only the racing, but it's, you know, being able to talk and be like, hey, look, I saw your truck was on the line. You know, have you checked this?
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing is, you know, being able to pass information, and then also, you know, oh, I saw you trying to tow your truck out of this, and, you know, just talking crap to each other. That's what we all do. We just talk crap to each other, which is nice.
Yeah, that's one of the best parts about the racing community. Like, honestly, even outside of diesel racing, like, I've been around racing my whole life, and if you need something and somebody else has it, like, they're gonna give it to you.
Oh, yeah.
You know, whatever. I mean, you're gonna have to give it back or pay for it or something. You know, but like, they're gonna help you out.
Yeah.
And that's one thing about like the diesel racing stuff is it seems to really be that way. Like, there's a couple camps that I know if I need something I can go, and they're gonna help me out. They're welcome to my stuff at any time. Like, that's the best part of doing what we do is the relationships that you build along the way. Because none of this would be any fun if you just went up to a track that was no people in the stands, no one else there, and you're running the number. There's no fun in that. It might be fun a couple times, and then it's going to get old. So it's really the people that make the difference.
Yeah, no, that's probably the best part about it, honestly.
Yeah. So you started racing in 19?
Yeah, started racing in 19, and all I've been doing is hitting my local track. Of course, I use the bracket racing as a testing too. So I go out there and of course I'm bracket racing against a guy that's in a full-blown bracket car, and or they're on a button and stuff like that. And I'm like, hey, I'm still trying to spool up. Like, so, of course, you do get that guy that goes in and you both light the first bulb, and then you light the second one.
Right in.
Or he's going right in.
Yeah.
He either sits there and waits so you burn down, or he goes right in and you're like, man, the pot was $500. I was just trying to have fun. Like, but those guys they're set in their ways, and that's what they're there to do. And then I go to Diesel Truck Wars every time. We make an event out of it, and we go down there and we hang out. We cook food all the time. Everyone knows us as you stop by and you grab a plate of whatever's there. I mean, now it was last time it was like white chicken chili, meatballs, bags of chips, and ribs. So everyone's like making a line, and I'm looking at myself, and I'm just like, I look at my wife because she was famous for her pancakes. Now she's famous for her white chicken chili.
Oh, nice.
So now it's everyone's like, you got that white chicken chili? And I'm like, what about the meatballs? I mean, they came out of the freezer bag, but still, like, I put them in the crock pot. Like, where's the white chicken chili? And I'm like, whatever. Like, go get you a plate kind of thing. And then, you know, they come back and they're like, is there any more left? I don't know. Like, scrape the sides of the bowl or something. So
that's cool.
And then we went to Crossville this year.
Before we get on that, is Diesel Truck Wars, that's coming up pretty soon, right?
Yeah, so it's March 22nd, I believe.
Okay.
So it's twice a year, one in the spring, one in the fall. It's normally either right before ODSS starts or shortly, like, I mean, literally a week or two after. I know I've talked to Chris in the past, and he tries to, you know, not put it as the same because a lot of people race both. I know Ryan Riddle, he comes and sweeps every time.
Yeah, he sweeps everything.
Yeah, it's not even fair. Like, I see him and I'm like, I'm glad you're in 7-7 and you're not with me because, you know, I'm going to stay away from you. But then you end up racing him in ET and it's like, oh, this was fun. Oh, so happy I could see you again.
Yeah, I think he won 770 and runner-up in ET this year. And I'm pretty sure that in the past he's won both, like, championships.
Oh, he won both the Diesel. It was the first year Diesel Truck Wars, they showed up. It was Levon and all them came out too. Ryan Riddle won ET 770, and then Landon won 670. So all was left. It was singles elite, which is no nitrous, single turbo, and then outlaw. That was the only two left that they didn't. But they didn't have a truck that competed in it. I'm like, I'm glad you guys didn't bring anything else, because that wouldn't have been fair. You guys just would have swept the entire event. But and I see Ryan Riddle post a picture of his clock that he got. It's because that's one of the other things that Chris and Buddy do. Not only do they put this event on twice, their trophies are one of a kind. This year, I don't know if you saw them, this year's a neon light that says Diesel Truck Wars.
I saw that. It's really cool.
It's the outline. They actually, I think he posted on Facebook the other day, they sold like 22 of them or something like that outside of the actual trophies.
Oh, really?
Because everyone complains and goes, I'm not going to be there, or I know I can't win, or the chances are very slim. Can I buy one? Because they had a piston that was of the gear with a chain that was a clock.
Yeah.
They've done plaques. They've done epoxy plaques. It's crazy.
They should probably not sell those because it makes winning it more valuable, and it'll drive people to the event if they know, hey, the only way I can get that is I have to win a class.
And I think that's what they've done. I think this was the first time they've ever sold, and it was a sign, so it's cool to put up in your shop.
Yeah.
It was something other than a trophy, even though it's used as a trophy. It was something that it looks like the Coors Light or the beer ones that are pretty. You're like, oh, okay, that's cool. And it's cool to have in your shop. I have a picture of it on my phone. I mean, that's as far as until I win one. That's what I'm going off of. Like, that's my goal this year is to win one.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try.
The people don't put enough emphasis on the trophy, the event promoters, because you never once told me about how much money this was going to pay.
Yeah.
All you're telling me about is the trophy, and when you win whatever the pot is, you spend it before you left.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but you remember the trophy. Like right behind you, I have those two trophies there. Those are my grandpa's from 1962. Do you think the money that he won from those is still around?
No.
No, it's long gone.
But the trophy's
trophy's here. So I think that more event promoters should focus on really making nice trophies like what Buddy and Chris do.
Oh yeah.
And I think that it would draw people to the events.
And don't get me wrong, the payout, I 100% don't know this answer, but last year in the fall, it was the biggest it's ever been for 670, which is crazy because you have Outlaw 670, Singles Elite, 770, ET. But 670 is the one that gets the main focus. And I want to say it was like $4 or $5 grand.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
And you look at it and the prices have changed, of course, with the economy, it goes up, but the prices were, $20 to get in, or $25 to get in per person, and then $20 to race. So other than fuel expenses and stuff like that, most tracks are way more than that to get in. I know ODSS and stuff like that are a lot more. So you had a chance at spending $100 and winning $4 or $5 grand. And don't get me wrong, it would have been spent. I would have been ordering everything on.
Yeah, exactly. The money would have been gone.
Hey, I'll buy this already. I got the money before I even left the track. But it's like you said, it's the trophies, the banners that you get. It's the cool stuff that you can hang up in your garage, and somebody walks by, they don't see the money in your hand, it's in your bank account. Yep. They see that trophy and they go, how'd you get that? That's cool. Like, you showing me those are cool.
Those are cool, yeah.
They're not just a little trophy with a little car. Those are actually
those are from 1962. Like, we could do way better than that now. Wes Buck at Drag Illustrated, he's the owner of it. He says this, and it's very true. And I apply it to everything in business and life. Is nobody remembers the event. Nobody remembers the payout. They don't remember who was there, the car count, nothing. They only remember the way they felt. And you love Diesel Truck Wars because of the way it makes you feel.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what sticks with people. And so it sounds like I definitely need to get down there. And it sounds like that Buddy and Chris are very good at making people feel good. And that's why their event continues to run 2 times a year, year after year.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's funny you said that. I remember that I won. It was Trent Owens and I got the runner-up for ET one year. Trent won it. He's always going to hold it against me because we're buddies, but he won it. So I got the runner-up money, and I want to say it was like $200, $250 or something. But I remember the trophy more than I do the money because it was a plaque that had epoxy colors in it. It was the Diesel Truck Wars logo, and I remember it because I don't have it, and Trent has it.
Yeah.
So of course I'm always going to be upset. And I'm just like, it was either that or it was one of the metal carvings that they had because they've done a couple of them. And I'm just like, all right, one year I'm going to get it. And every day I'm going to send a picture to Trent and be like, I got it this year, you didn't.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be every day, every week. And I'm just like, see what you made me do.
Exactly. That's cool. So you were going to talk about Crossville before. I just wanted to make sure that we plugged Diesel Truck Wars because
it's that's what got me into this, honestly. I mean, that's the first event I ever went to, and it was crazy because I went to that event and then I went to my local drag strip, and I was like, man, I don't like this. I don't like the way it's laid out.
Yeah.
Because Buddy and Chris run it so efficiently that even my wife says, she's like, why are we sitting here for an hour and a half? Why aren't they just running constantly in between? Like as soon as track prep is done, why aren't we going?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I don't like this. I want to go back to Diesel Truck Wars. I'm like, well, that's a 4-hour drive. We're not going there every day to race. Like,
yeah.
Sorry. And so it's efficiency. But no, to keep moving on is Crossville. It was my first ODSS event. You know, of course, there was a fire and there was a couple other things that happened. So with rain and stuff, it kind of got pushed around, but I mean, I still had a blast. It was like 100-degree heat, but it was still fun to get out there, see everyone that I talked to on Facebook and, you know, message back and forth. And then also I got to go to a Buc-ee's. You know how cool that was? Like,
yeah, it's funny because we have a Buc-ee's now in Richmond, Kentucky, which is pretty far from here. But before that, we haven't had any Buc-ee's around here. So my first experience at a Buc-ee's was the same way. This is awesome. This isn't a gas station. This is a freaking grocery store.
Yeah.
Like, they sell everything there.
Yep.
That's funny. Yeah, I always liked Rocky Top because I've been going to Rocky Top since before the track looked the way it did when you were there.
Okay.
They put a lot of money into that place like 4 or 5 years ago. Before that, it was a little old, like nothing special. Guardrail track, tiny, and like they have made that place something really, really nice. My only complaint with it is I wish they would do something a little bit different with the shutdown. It's really bumpy. When you start going fast, it matters even more. So I wish that they'd work on the shutdown a little bit, but it is a really cool place. But it's always so hot.
It is. That's what
so hot.
When I messaged you when we were there this year, I was like, man, actually, no, it wasn't bad. And then out of nowhere, the clouds went away, and I was like, oh, it is bad. I forgot the generator and a couple other things, and I'm like, I better go buy a generator, a fan. Like, I'm gonna just be sweating the whole time. And then of course the truck, you're like, as soon as it gets back, it needs to be on the fan. It needs to cool down. But I still need to change this. I need to adjust this. And then the group chat's going off because everyone in the ODSS chat's going crazy.
Yeah,
and
you're trying to figure out when are we running
When are we going? And then you hear something on the speaker, and then you hear fire punk spooling up over there, but they're just doing testing. And then I'm like, all right, I'm so confused to the point where we started parking our truck closer or trying to get closer.
So you can kind of see what's going on.
Yeah. So it was an event to go to. We're going to go back this year. I mean, we're just going to try to hit a couple more. Of course, we're in Delaware, so
makes it tough.
Rocky Top's the closest one. Although I think Rocky Top is 11 hours total, and Rudy's is like 8.5. But the problem with that is Rudy's normally falls like really close to Diesel Truck Wars, so with my schedule for work, I go down there, it's either going to be one or the other. And there's another event that just started.
The Pennsylvania?
Oh, we're going to that one.
Okay, that one's probably pretty close.
I forgot about that one. I forgot they changed it because I really was hoping they would go to MIR.
Oh yeah, me
but
too. That's
I know
my favorite track.
They said that was the spectator count wasn't as big. I'm like, I know, but that was a while ago. Give it another chance.
Yeah,
so,
I don't think they've ever been to MIR. ODSS has.
Or no, Virginia Motorsports.
Virginia. That's also a really nice track.
That's where it was. Yep. Because that's why I was like, man, I can hit those ones a lot closer.
Yeah.
Which I know a lot of you either have which is nice. I'm glad it's not so far west that none of us can go, but a lot of it is East Coast.
Yep.
Or in the central, like you guys.
Yeah.
That's where most of the racing is.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, if I want to, I can drive 12 hours, or I can go to UCC. I could go to Indy. There's like I could drive that far, but it's at the same time it's like, shoo.
Yeah, and then that's the problem for the guys in Texas because there's quite a few trucks in Texas and customers out there, and it's like they'll just pick 1 or 2 events that they haul to because it's 13, 17 hours for them to get over here to what I call the Middle East.
Yeah, and I know the one in Pennsylvania. My buddy Tommy Marinelli, we're gonna go to that one. He's got a P pump 24 valve, so I'm like, but we'll still go together.
Yeah.
He's actually the one that rebuilt my trans and did all that. So he's been a big help with, trying to figure out stall.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that was such a big thing.
Yep.
And we upped the stall, and it's something that we've talked about, and it's like, wow, I didn't realize the truck would respond by a little adjustment.
Yep.
The truck responded completely different. It's like, okay, what's next? Like, but the thing is, if you go up too high or too low, it's you start getting farther away.
You got to find that what your truck likes, and
Yeah.
what your truck likes is going to be different than what a common rail truck likes.
Yes,
And it's different brands of converters act differently, so it can turn into a money thing real quick because it gets expensive, and that's why like guys that are serious about racing, like when they call me for a transmission, I always try to sell them a bolt together converter because it's not that much more money up front, and it saves you so much time and money in the long run because you can change the stator yourself. You're not shipping it back and forth. Like, they're really the way to go for a race truck. Is to be able to change the stall.
And I think that's great. I know we talked about it last time at lunch. You were telling me about different, stall speeds. We were talking about different parts and stuff like that, and going through it. And it's really knowledgeable that I can, talk to you, I can talk to Tommy, I can talk to all these people and say, hey, what do you think about this? And a lot of you guys are going to say, hey, before you just go drop $2,000 with me, why don't you try this instead? That's, a simple change of this. Not, hey, spend this money. And that's what I really like, is you guys aren't saying, hey, $5,000 and, we're going to change this for you. And it doesn't work. It's, hey, why don't you try 2 more things and then you spend the money?
Exactly.
Which is nice.
And then at that point, it's like trust building, right? So when I say, hey, it's time to spend the money, you know that I'm not just telling you to spend money.
You've exhausted all the avenues.
And that's how I like to do it with like my customers with my transmission stuff. It's like they'll call in and they'll be like, hey, I have this or this. If they really need to change it, I'll tell them you need to spend the money. But there's plenty of times I've talked myself out of sales. I'm a horrible salesperson because I'm just so honest that I'm just like, hey, that's actually not your problem. This is your problem. You could make this simple adjustment, or you could buy this small part and fix it. And to me, that's just how that's how I would want to be treated. And so, it's like that little golden rule when you're a kid, like treat people how you want to be treated. It's true, man.
It's same thing I do with Quadzilla tuning. People, they'll message me, they're like, hey, this tune didn't work by this person. I'm like, okay, well, what are you running? They're like, well, I got a stock SO pump, stock injectors, and all I did was put a Quadzilla on. I'm like, and you want it to smoke? And you want it to do this, or you want it to... The Quadzilla can only do so much. As you know, our injectors are mechanical. They're wide open. There's either all or nothing.
On or off.
There's nothing else. And I try to tell people, I'm like, well, it's not the tune. Why don't you try this first? And it's the same with transmissions and everything that you sell and do. It's, try this or try that. It's how many times I put that battery in my cart on your page? I've done it so many times. I'm like, all right, now it's getting to the point where I'm going to buy a battery. And I'm like, you know what? Which, by the way, guys, he's got a killer battery and a killer deal, so make sure.
Well, I appreciate that. I've talked people out of buying that battery because they're like, hey, I want to cut weight. I'm looking at one of your batteries. And I explained to them like why it's good and what it does and everything, but they have something else. I'm like, man, you could do that. Like, you could spend that $1,000 here and gain way more than what this battery is going to gain you. And that's like I just had a guy the other day ask me a question, and I felt really dumb because I couldn't answer it for him. He had a full weight truck, and he wanted to leave the interior in it, and he wanted to leave the bed in it, and he asked me, what's the best way to cut weight without taking the bed out, without getting rid of the interior? And I had to think about it. I was like, man, like, I don't know. He's like, I'm on a budget. What's the best thing I can buy? And I'm like, man, I don't know. I really had to think about it. And it's kind of been like bugging me that I didn't have an answer for him. And so I was thinking about it last night, and I was thinking about how I approach, like, when I change stuff on my truck. I don't ever change something that's just going to save weight. If all it's going to do is save weight, I put that over to the side, and I'll change something that's going to do 2 things. Okay, like on the steering, when I went to manual steering, it gave me a better steering ratio, it tightened it up, it made the truck better to drive, and it saved weight. So that's a good thing. I try to always kill 2 birds with 1 stone, but it can be hard to try to figure out what that answer is for you. Like we were talking about that power steering pump, and it's like, do I spend $600 on this to save 5 pounds?
And
probably
2 horsepower?
Yeah, like probably not worth it. Now, if you got all the rest of the weight out of the truck and you really wanted that 5 pounds, then okay.
That's where I came with the battery. I mean, there's been times where I've messaged you and you're like, hey, what about this? And we talked about the front suspension. You're like, okay, what about this? Or, you know, did you do this first? I'm like, no. Well, you get out of your price that you're going to spend, you know, $1,000, you get a 2-for-1 deal. Yep. Whether you buy this and you only get weight savings and that's it.
Exactly.
And it's also my battery, knock on wood, is probably close to the end of its cycle. So that's why instead of buying another one, I can take that money, put it towards this and say, hey, look, I want to order
just
one.
save 40 pounds. Yeah. And you have it's going to start every time. It's going to crank. There is nothing more aggravating at the racetrack than having battery issues. Man, it is the worst. Like when you're strapped in the truck and it's about to be your time to go and you reach up to hit the starter and you're like, I hope it starts. That is the most like you'll keep the truck at home because of starting issues and spooling issues.
Yes.
If it doesn't spool well and it doesn't start good, leave it at home until it does.
I think I got one more to add to that. I just went 9s.
Yeah.
Come home by myself. Have to get ready to leave for work the next day to go travel. I'm literally by myself in the driveway unloading my truck, and I go to start it and it won't. I press the button, it won't start. Okay, you know what? Maybe something came loose because I've realized that now the solid motor mounts and stuff, everything gets more vibration. So you know what? All right. I look behind it, nothing. I'm like, all right, let me jump the wires. Nothing. Battery's good. Couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. It's getting later.
Oh.
I still have a 4-hour drive. It's getting later, and I'm like, so I start rolling the truck off by myself. Had a family member come over. They helped me. Once I got the truck halfway off the trailer, they helped me get it the rest of the way off by using the tractor and stuff like that. Fast forward 2 months, I'm like, you know what? Pop the starter off, take it in, get it tested. Starter went bad.
Oh.
I don't know how lucky I am because that last pass was my 9-second pass.
Oh,
the truck started it had 2 more starts. One was the start for the pass, and one was the start to be on the trailer.
Yeah.
That's all I needed, and I am so thankful for that, but it comes right back to it. If that would have been at the track.
Oh, how defeating would that have been?
I would have been, and the first pass I made with that truck was a 10.001.
Yeah, so you knew it was right there.
It was right there, and I watched the videos, and I'm like, hey, there's a little bit of adjustment we can do, and you know, I can change the tune a little bit. I would have been so mad. I would have packed up, went home. It's the same thing that happened at Diesel Truck Wars. I made 1 pass. Come to find out the gasket on the timing case had blown out and I was leaking oil. I made 1 pass and then packed up the truck and just sat there and watched the rest of the time. 4-hour trip, one way.
That's the worst.
And that's what
it happens. It is part of racing, but man, it sucks when it can be prevented.
Yeah, and it's wear and tear, like you said, and it's stuff you don't look at. But now, guess what I do? I make sure the starter's new, so hopefully it's good. But I always check and like, hey, is there? Because I did see there was an oil leak before I took the truck, but I thought I had spilled oil from it came off the bottle or something like that. I didn't know that it was from the truck, but I got task saturated and I just kind of let it go. And now I'm like, I have a checklist in my head that I go through and check every little thing.
And writing that checklist down is a big deal too.
Yeah. It's in my notepad, my bad.
even your procedure of when you're going to be at the racetrack running the truck. Like if you look in JP's truck, there's a note in it still to this day that's taped to it. It's just a piece of paper, and it says on there the burnout procedure, like what gear to start in, like what switches to flip when we back up, like everything. And that stems from him being a helicopter pilot. And in aviation, you have checklists, as you know, being an aviation guy, that if you don't do that checklist, that's a bad day. Yeah. And you don't get second chances in aviation.
No, there's no second chances.
And so I treat the racing like that, where it's like, hey, I have to, like, this has to be right. Like, this thing gets nut and bolt every time. I'm checking it before it goes out. Because once you get to a certain level, you get hurt in one of these things. And you have to be serious about that. And so having a checklist keeps that from happening to where it's like, oh man, we caught this now. We didn't drive all the way somewhere and make 1 pass because of this stupid thing that we were able to catch here at the shop. And that's what I see people don't do. They leave them in the trailer. They go to one ODSS race and then they put it in the trailer and they leave it in there until the next one. It's like, man, you can't do that at a certain point.
And that's where it comes down to. So I had with the safety, so I had an S&W cage. Did it myself in the garage. Had some friends help me. It was all MIG welded and everything. Saw a buddy from school in my local town that I'm in, and he was like, "Hey, whenever you want to, change the door bars," because I was getting to the point where, they weren't where they should have been, but they needed to be between my elbow and my shoulder and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, well then I go out and I make a 9-second pass. Now I need an 850 gauge.
Yep. So
then the track told me like, hey, next time if you want to keep running these times, you're gonna need an 850 gauge, and you're gonna have to. It's gonna have to be certed, all this stuff. I'm like, okay. So talk to him. His name's Nathan. He's like, hey, look, either I can make it or you can get it from somewhere. Well, Firepunk had a killer deal. Doe Cole 850 gauge shipped to my door. I couldn't beat that. So then I talked to my buddy Nathan at East Coast Performance Center. Hey, I can install it for you. So then he did it. Well, now I've gotten him a couple people that they're going to get their cage, because the problem is I got a buddy Dylan that has a Camaro. He just broke into the 9s. He went 9.99. He needs a cage now.
Yep.
But he never thought about it. Now he's like, oh man, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Well, you start looking at cage costs.
It gets expensive.
I was quoted between, $5,000 to upwards of $8,000 for an 850 cage, and it's like, the truck's gutted.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not a fabricator. I can't, I'm not going to get mad at people for that. I'm going to pay for safety, of course.
Sure.
And of course, I start sending people to Nathan because his prices are really good. And that money doesn't gain you speed.
Nope.
Doesn't gain you, the chassis and the nist.
It just makes it heavier.
It makes it heavier. It actually hurts you in the long run. It changes, for weight differences. And of course, now I got to climb over a bar to get in the truck.
Yeah, it makes it more of a pain.
Gosh, there's another procedure I got to do.
Yep.
But at the same time, now I'm safe.
Yep.
Within reason.
I
have a lot more safety. Yeah. And, now I look at it and I'm like, well, shoot. Maybe I'm going to do a parachute here soon. I only run, I'm going to be I'm trying to get 590s, but at the same time, that's getting up there to where I'm going to need a chute in case something fails. Or, I never would have thought the starter would have went. Now it's like, shoot. That's another thing. It's not safety, but it's It's a wear and tear item.
Maintenance items.
Brake pad. Little things like that. And you don't think about that. I think turbos, injectors, injection pump. I want to go fast.
Horsepower.
Yeah, horsepower items. Not I need to slow down. Tires. I need a chute. I need this, and it's like, or the big thing that just got me, and I'm so thankful I caught it. My harness was expired.
Oh yeah. That sucks.
But
you only get 2 years out of it.
Yes, and it wasn't ever checked with me running, 670.
Right.
I never really had it checked. Didn't even think about it, but when I took it out to take it to my buddy Nathan, I'm like, 23 December.
Oh man, that thing's out of date.
Oh, that could have been so bad, because I would have went to the track. They might have let me go on. They might have not.
Usually on a seatbelt, they'll give you one pass.
But then it falls under like, hey, you should have got it changed. You should have done this. And I'm like, oh, that could have been bad.
Yeah, the safety stuff is, the people underestimate the expense of the safety stuff. And that's where it's like 670 to 590 doesn't seem like a huge jump. Like, especially like for you, like you're running 630s, right? You're like, oh, I could just make a little bit more power, get my truck dialed in, I can run 590. But you're going to have to spend 10 grand on safety stuff to be able to run it, because once you get past that 640 threshold, you got to have that 850 cage, it's got to be certified, you got to have full fire suit.
Yep.
For ODSS, now you have to have fire suppression to run 590.
Yeah.
Which I think is a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction. I think it's a little unnecessary, but it's safety.
It's safety.
You can never be too safe. It's never a bad idea.
I was on the line when Zach's truck caught fire.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a big thing to me, and I'm like, I looked at my buddy, and I mean, we're all sitting on the line watching. I mean, it's ODSS, so we're all there watching all the people we see on Facebook. We're watching all these trucks go, and I'm like, man, I never would have thought of that.
Yeah.
I would have just thought, a small fire extinguisher. But as quick as that happened, especially with military training and being a loadmaster, things can go wrong quick.
Yep.
Everyday items can go wrong quick. They always say, I've always been told this, and I don't know how true it is, but you're more likely to die on the way to the airport than actually in the airplane.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think about that. That's not, to me, driving isn't as bad as being on an airplane.
Right, that's how I feel too, yeah.
Yeah, so I look at it and I'm like, man, maybe, people used to make fun of me, and I still think it's funny that they did, but I had a fire suit for 770.
You can never be too safe. I don't care if people make fun of you when you put parachutes on it too.
Yeah.
People make fun of me because I'm not fast enough to need 2 chutes. The thing with the parachutes is I've seen so many times. I've personally saved that truck from crashing only because I got the shootout. It had transfer case issue, front drive shaft U-joint seized up, took out the transfer case, oil on the tires. There's nothing that's going to help me in that deal.
No.
But the parachute did, because when the chute comes out, it's aiming at the starting line.
Yeah.
And so it jerks the back of the truck straight towards the starting line. And so to me, if people want to make fun of you about parachutes, they just don't really understand what parachutes do.
And I'm sure it'll happen because I got, when I first showed up when I was racing 770, and people were like, you got race shoes, which it was a combo kit that I got for Christmas. So
right.
I wore it all. The only thing I didn't wear was the thick neck brace and the gloves because I wanted a different pair of gloves. But now I already have it. It's good to go. Mm-hmm. My helmet and everything's good to go. And I look back and I'm like, 770, you're crossing the line at 90 mile an hour. So, that still could be a bad problem. 90 mile an hour is faster than what you're going on the highway. And what happens when you're going, 25, 35, mile an hour? You still can get hurt.
Yeah.
And if I had a regular seatbelt on at the time when I was racing 770, it's like, man, at least I should have had a jacket on.
Yeah.
So, and at first I started just wearing a jacket, jeans, and shoes, and then it was like, you know what? I already got everything. Might as well wear it.
Yeah, it's good to get used to that.
And that's what I did. So that's, they can make fun of me with a parachute.
No.
I'm just going to write on big letters, can't catch this VP on there or something like that.
My wife bought me an $1,800 Race Tech seat. And like most people would say that I don't need that, but we have a Race Tech seat in that truck. But it is the safest seat on the market. And I don't care if people think it's stupid or not. It's a safety thing. Everybody that I've talked to that's been in a bad crash, the thing that they've, people that hadn't really gotten hurt but kind of did get hurt, they all had a cheap seat in the car. And they all say, man, if I'd have just spent the money on that good seat, I wouldn't even had to go into the hospital. And it's like $1,800 is a lot of money for a seat. But have you ever priced a hospital visit? $1,800 ain't nothing.
Yeah, okay. I just upgraded my seat from one of those plastic
that's
seats.
what I had before.
Yeah, now I have it's a Summit, but it's a Kirky.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It looks identical to the Kirky.
And those are way better than the plastic ones.
It holds. It's weird because I sat in it and I'm like, I sat in a buddy of mine's. I'm like, dude, it's holding me. Like, it holds me tight. And I'm like, and you actually have to have measurements for it. I am sitting on a chair. Can you measure me real quick to see what I'm at? Because you look at it and you're like, man, that plastic seat, I could slide all around.
Yeah.
I could just,
it's comfortable.
It's comfortable,
but it's not safe.
It's not hot in the summer, but now with that metal seat, it's like, ooh, let me put a seat cover on it, or this isn't like there's no cushion because it's keeping you
exactly
closed. So I agree. I think safety is a big thing that gets overlooked, and I've made posts on Instagram on my Carter Racing Instagram page. I've made posts. I'm like, hey, we went with the 850 cert because I didn't want to just race 670. I want to keep pushing the limits of the VP pump. And I look at it, I'm like, safety is a big thing. And I even put in there, like, safety is always overlooked because I don't care who you are. A life is not replaceable.
No.
And you can't get your arm back.
No.
It's what you are born with is what you have, and that's it.
That's
and
it.
None of us, especially in the racing, diesel, any of those groups or industries, nobody wants to see someone get hurt.
No.
Or I cheaped out on, on a cage because I just wanted to do this or so.
And that's why I get upset and I hold the tracks and the event promoters responsible too, because we're investing in our safety, right? We're meeting all the requirements. We're spending that $10,000 worth of safety stuff. I expect that if you are a legit organization that is charging organization money, that there should be fire on site.
Yeah.
Every event should have a fire truck on site.
Yep.
There should be ambulance on site at all points because we have to live up to the safety measures. Well, now it's your responsibility to do the same too.
Yep.
So, what do you do about that? I don't know.
That's another story for another day that I can't, it's above my pay grade is what I like to say.
Yeah, it's above all of our pay grades. What it comes back to is you just have to take your safety serious, and you have to do everything you can to just know that nobody's coming for you.
Yeah.
And so that's where it's like the fire suppression rule sucks, but at the same time, I'm kind of happy because I've been wanting to do that in this truck for a long time.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things, it's like, I don't need it. So, but now I'm like, you know what, I have to. I'm not even upset about it because I want to do it. And so if something happens, the fastest person to put out a fire is you.
Yeah.
There's nobody getting to you faster than you. So as long as you're conscious and you can pull a lever, it's not a bad idea to have fire suppression.
And it'll save your truck, save your life.
I mean,
the main thing is your life, but of course, all the blood, sweat, and tears.
Oh man, yeah. Like some of these trucks, so it sounds like your truck was the first truck you've ever. That was your first diesel truck, right?
That's my first diesel truck. Well, I had a diesel truck. The first one I bought, I actually got in an accident. Don't remember much of the accident, but I was able to salvage the motor and trans. And then I got another truck, put the motor and trans in. Then, of course, that block cracked. That transmission, I snapped a couple parts in it, and then that's when I had it rebuilt. I had the motor redone. I actually found, it's funny you talk about like old school guys and stuff like that. I had an old Mopar guy build my engine.
Oh, really? That's cool.
And he does diesels, but he doesn't advertise it. It's out of his house. It's like in his garage at his house, but he's got everything set up there. And it's like, this guy was like, I mean, he was really good pricing. But at the same time, he's like, hey, look, I don't do a lot of them, but just tell me how you want it. And I go off of my book. And I told him exactly like, hey, it needs to fit this and this for my old motor. Here you go. And I mean, I love it. It's been great to me. And you look at it and you go, man, like that was money well spent.
Yeah.
So now I have, that's technically my first truck though. I have a 2017 2500, but of course that truck is, limited by the government now. So I kind of stay to my easier trucks.
Yeah. Well, where I was going with that is like that truck has a lot of sentimental value to it.
It does.
And it's like, this is the same way. Like this was my first truck. And it's like, my wife and I have been together since we were in high school. We went to prom in this truck. When we got married, we had the truck at our wedding. Like it would devastate me to lose this to something that I could prevent. Like I know the risk when you go racing, right? Like it can happen.
Yeah.
But if you can, if I burnt to the ground and a fire suppression system could have prevented it, like what a fool I would have been to have not spent the money on that.
Yeah. I mean, it was weird though. You told me I could buy it.
You know what's funny is I've never had anybody ask me to buy it.
Really?
Yeah, and I find that really odd. I figured that when I first got it done, there would be somebody that would say, hey, how much for it? Nobody's ever asked me to buy it.
I think I got like a gift card to like Texas Roadhouse or something.
Yeah. I do love those rolls.
Easy payment plan.
Yeah. So let's just recap this before we end it off here. So your truck's been how fast in the eighth?
It's like 630.
636.
636.
Yeah, I was looking at
I'm right behind Johnny, which Johnny, I'm coming for you if you're watching this.
He's definitely not watching this.
So on the list, it's I'm at 635.
Okay.
John Gilbert's at 633. Stephen O'Neill's at 6.07. And then Chris Parker has a record at 591.
Okay.
Right now, Chris is out of commission on his truck, so
it's been down for a few years, right?
2, I think. He's coming up on 2 now. I think this will be 2 seasons. So right now, I mean, Steven's the one with the S10, and so it's honestly just Steven and I right now.
Yeah, the only active people.
Active, yeah. And then of course you have everyone behind us, TJ Frey. So you got all these people behind us, and it's always, we always talk crap to each other, but we'll get a message later on, be like, hey man, what did you do here? Or how did you do this? Or stuff like that. So it's been fun, but I mean, I got 635 in the 8th.
Which is really fast.
It's
like people get numb to these numbers because they see like 4-second trucks and stuff. If you've never driven a race truck before, 630s is flying. Like it is no joke.
It's, believe it or not, I mean, I was at Cecil County and I launched the truck. I wish I would have had the GoPro on the truck because you could have heard the excitement in the cab because I knew that I went fast.
Yeah, you knew.
And I felt it, and I was just screaming and yelling. Mind you, I'm still trying to find the return road because I totally didn't even look, and I'm like, did I pass it? I come up to the lady, and that's the same pass that I went 9s in. And the VP didn't like the 9s because it's a 1/4-mile track, so it doesn't like running that long with the way I have it set up. So, of course, I grabbed the ticket from the lady, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like it didn't. Yeah. I just saw the 6 number. I didn't look at the 9 number.
Oh, you were looking
out. Yeah. Because I'm just looking at the 8th mile to see where I'm getting at because I'm trying to get to that fuel only number. And as soon as it registered, I'm like, yeah. And I'm just like screaming. I get back to the truck. I forgot to put it in park because I got the ratchet shifter. So of course I just shut it all off, and I'm like, I get out of the truck, I'm high-fiving all my buddies, and I'm like, dude, we did it. Yeah. I go to start the truck up to put it back on the trailer, and it's like, it jumps forward. I'm like, ooh, okay. Look, another procedure. We need to.
Yeah, neutral safety switch.
Exactly. Yeah, I need to add one.
Yeah. That's cool. So, what's do you want to talk about what the setup is a little bit, or is that kind of a hush hush deal?
Yeah, I can give general. I mean,
yeah, just generally, because I know people are going to be interested.
It's a Shive Stage 2 pump. I mean, you can either get a Monster Mike's pump, which there's no support. So if you spend $3,000 on a pump and it doesn't work, you're kind of out of your money. There's no help. There is some things in the work that I know about, or in the works I know about, that there is a new pump being designed. I know Corey from PPEI is also want to dabble in doing some tuning with the VP pump. As far as I don't know the inner workings of it, but doing something to get into the pump. But I do know somebody that is building another VP pump that will be equal to or more than the Monster Mike's pump, Stage 3. So that'll be cool to see when it comes out. It's in the engineering phase, as I like to say. There's kind of a delay, but it's coming. My injectors, I've ran all different kinds. Right now, it's been a set from Diesel Auto Power that I've been testing and stuff like that, and going through those motions. It's a Crazy Cross Turbos over under kit. I've never been a fan of side by side kits. It's just my personal preference, but over under, it's really entry level stuff to be. The cost is there. You're not spending this crazy money on something that is out of this world where you can just spend money here and then use it on something else.
Right.
So that's why I chose that kit. It's a 363 over a 480. It's, of course I got all the supporting mods with push rods and, everything there. And then honestly, it's studded top to bottom. That was my big thing. I didn't need it at the time, but I had it completely studded.
Yeah, why wouldn't you if you're in there?
If I'm in there, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a stock valve cover. Some people go out and spend the $600-700 on a valve cover, and I'm like, I don't see it going down the track, so whatever.
Yeah, you don't need to.
It's a full fiberglass bedside door. The only thing metal in the truck, of course, it's a full frame, is the cab. Everything else came from Hot Bods, Joe Frey. He's not too far from here.
Up in Northern Ohio.
Yeah, yep. So everything came from him. And then as far as the brakes, it's Innovative Machining Solutions. I went with his brake conversion kit on the front and the back, and I also went with the different hubs in the front.
So you can clear the 15-inch wheels now?
I can clear the 15s. I haven't bought 15s, but I can clear the 15s. So whenever I can get a good price on 15s and tires, that'll be some more weight savings.
Yeah. Make sure we talk about that before you order them, because the back space is really important.
We did. That's what you told me last time. You're like, hey, look, I'd like to see you in a 15, but you don't need to spend the money now.
Yeah.
But when you do,
let's talk about it.
Let's get measurements.
Yeah.
And then I got I know you build transmissions, but I try to stay local with my transmission because I can't pull it and drop it off to you.
Right.
That's the problem. That's the big problem with the diesel industry is everyone's so far spread out that if you want something, it's a 9-hour drive.
Yeah.
And you're like, man. So Tommy with Marinelli Motorsports built my transmission. It's a full billet. You would know, of course, it's full billet everything. It's got a Suncoast converter. We're looking at possibly changing that and going to a Go-Rin one. I think that might be in the planning stages here soon. As far as that goes, I got all my fabrication work now is going through a friend of mine in Delaware, East Coast Performance Center. He's doing a phenomenal job. I mean, reasonable and stuff like that, and that's a big thing is fabrication work. I look at it, I'm like, oh, I took that MIG welder and I was waving it around, and then I'm like, that looks like crap.
Yeah.
Now I know why people say it looks like boogers or gum.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. So now, and then I look at your stuff, I'm like, people now have eyes on my truck, so more and more people are seeing it, and I'm like, I don't want them coming up and going, you welded that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I don't. It's the guy before me had to do it. So we went down to a 5-gallon fuel cell in the back because I just don't need the 15 gallons.
Right.
No nitrous. We changed over to a new steering column. But I mean, other than that, and we run Quadzilla tuning, like I said before. I mean, it's been, I know there's another revamped programmer that just came out, but at the same time, I don't want to.
You don't want to mess with what's working.
It's working.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at it and I'm hopefully going to be higher up on the list this year, or lower on the list, I guess you could say. And I want to be that person that says, Quadzilla is there. I talk to Quadzilla at least once a month, brainstorm ideas. There's not much you can do to the VP anymore. A lot of engineers went over to the common rail side, so it's kind of left behind. Scheid is the only one making a stage 2 pump.
Really?
It's only Scheid, so it's either you run the Scheid stage 2 or you chance it with a monster mic, like I said.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're, I know you guys have different P pump builders, and you
I
can
run
go
Scheid stuff.
Yeah, so you can go as high as you want to. As much as money you can spend on that pump, you
Yeah.
can go. Where the common rail, you can stack 2 CP3s, you can do all kinds of stuff. Or you can do I think, didn't they just come out with another CP3?
Yeah, there's a couple people that have
It's just, there's endless possibilities. So I look at the VP and I'm like, Scheid. That's all that's there.
Yeah.
So until the one that's being developed comes out and I can test it, then we're going to go from there. But no, I mean, if I'm missing anybody, I apologize. There's been so many hands, whether it's been, you helping me via remote is what I call it, because I'll message you and I'll be like, hey, look, I got a race on Saturday. I could spare a couple minutes. Okay, thank you. And then I'll send you a video and you're like, okay, well, I really couldn't. And I'm like, yes, I'm going up right now.
I'm always going to yell about the videos. I'm real particular on the videos.
So it's between the guys that are there helping me personally, and then the guys that are, with the truck remotely saying, hey, look, try this, try that. I know between Innovative Machine Solutions, I was telling Devin, I know him and Austin Deutsch work together too, but I was like, hey, look, this didn't fit perfect.
Yeah.
Let's change this. Or, the front control arms, the first ones that were sent were a little bit too short because we got the measurements wrong. But then we were able to iron that out, and now he makes full billet control arms.
Yep.
There's not a lot of people for the second gen that make them.
Right.
And now I have them, and I'm like, okay, cool. That helped with the torque steer problem, because I know you and I talked about that.
Yep, getting rid of the bushings.
Yeah, little things like that. And then I actually took the truck to Crossville this year, and I have a full front clip, so I was able to get rid of a lot of stuff that I didn't need. So Carl took the truck and was like, all right, let's put new piping on it. So we kept his over-under kit. We just changed the inlet and the outlet pipes for the intercooler, and we're able to change that out, which was nice. It was cool to be able to, go places and meet these places.
Right.
And it's like I said with Diesel Auto Power, being able to, they took me in there and they're like, hey, you want to build a set of injectors? I have no idea before I stepped foot in there, I had no idea what went into an injector.
Really?
So that was pretty cool.
That is really cool. Well, so it sounds like if you're not really changing much for next year, you're just doing your safety stuff, and your plan is to pick up where you left off and try to go for those records, right?
Yeah, that's the goal. There's a couple things I might go up on turbos. Diesel Auto Power's coming out with new turbos, so that's really exciting. It's going to be, they're trying to make it, I guess you could say, a better cost to the customer, which is always, as I love hearing that, oh, the price went down, not the price went up, and you're like, oh, I'm glad, because there's times where you go buy something and you're like, it increased over a month. You're like, no.
I know, in this economy, it really helps too when stuff's going down.
And then buying a battery, so that's exciting. I can't wait. That's going to be, that's weight lost.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, that's going
to
be great.
Just when you start it just it fires right up. Oh, that's so nice.
I can't wait. I'm just gonna send you videos of me starting the truck. It works.
Yeah. Well, I've even posted videos on my Instagram and stuff of just cold starting the truck before I blew the motor up. And these things don't cold start. And when I say cold start, I'm talking 65 degrees. That's a cold start for one of these. And just hearing it just and it fires right up, and it's really nice not having to deal with those problems. Well, that's cool, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to come down here and tell us about your truck and what your plans are with it. Where can people find you? Because I know there's going to be some new people wanting to follow along with you.
The easiest place is Instagram. It's Carter__racing. If not, it's on Facebook under Drew Carter. I'm on all of the VP44, Cummins Forum, 4th Gen Forum, Fire Punk. If you see me, I'm a easy to reach guy. If you send me a message and it's something I don't have an answer for, I'm gonna reach out to one of my friends, and I might say, hey Logan, I don't know this answer. What do you think?
Yeah.
And whenever you do find out what is the easiest way to cut weight, please let me know.
Yeah.
The cheapest and first thing that you should
Without
do.
spending a bunch of money.
Without spending a bunch
I'll
of
let you know.
Because I would love to know that answer, because I'm sure that'll be something that somebody goes, hey, I just bought this truck. What can I do? And I'm like, hold on, let me make a message real quick.
Yeah.
But that's the easiest way to get a hold of me. I mean, if I don't answer you, of course I'm flying. So, give me a chance to respond back. If you need any tuning with the Quadzilla, reach out to me. I can get you taken care of. It's a pretty easy process, and it's done remotely. There's no, you need to go to a dyno. You need to, I need to be there. You have a cell phone. I send it to your cell phone, and you don't have to worry about entering anything, and I help you the whole time. So
That's nice.
It's easy. I like it. I enjoy it.
That's cool, man. Well, thank you very much for coming on here. Really appreciate the conversation. I'm sure that a lot of people will really get a lot out of this, because we kind of covered a bunch of different topics. Like, I never have any plan when I do this stuff. I just sit down, and it's just a conversation between us. Wherever it goes, it goes. And I really like where this one went. So really appreciate it. And so you guys know where to find them. If you guys are liking this type of stuff, make sure that you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you're updated when we get new podcast people on. And if any of you guys want to come on the podcast and you can get to Northern Kentucky here, it's not too hard to find, right?
It was not a bad drive.
Just hit me up and we'll get you on the podcast. So that's all we got for this one, guys. Thanks for watching. See you next time.